This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. I am Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from, Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coffin, Director of Operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford, and from the Walker Report down here in Florida, we have Bradley Walker joining us. Our special guest for tonight's debate, he's perfect for it. It's going to be the greatest men's tennis player of all time. We were already discussing it a little bit before we got on here. But we're joined by a former ATP, ITF player, and current trainer and coach of women's tennis. We have Coach Kevin O'Neill here. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. As always, we'll have our Q&A afterwards. We're going to jump into the debate, and we're going to start with Rollo's player tonight.
The king of clay, Rafael Nadal, is one of the big three, along with Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. Nadal hit his success early, winning his first major before the age of 20. Actually had 16 wins before the age of 20. Federer won his first title at 21, and Djokovic won his first major at 23. He was also ranked number 2 in the world before he turned age 20. He won his first major off clay, beating Federer, and we'll talk about clay here in a minute.
Yeah.
But he beat Federer at Wimbledon, becoming the world's number 1 at 22. Also that year, he won the Beijing Olympics. He won the gold medal at Beijing. Then in 2010, he would be the youngest in the Open era to achieve the career Grand Slam, and the first to achieve the Surface Slam in the same year. What makes Nadal the GOAT is his dominance on clay courts, which is probably the hardest surface to play on. But he also won on a variety of all the other surfaces too. But his 22 Grand Slams is second all time. He has 14 career titles at the French Open, and it was a perfect 14-0 in finals, which is he has 14 titles, which is 4 more than Djokovic had at the Australian Open, that has 10, and Federer 6 more than he has at Wimbledon. On clay, he had on clay at Roland Garros, he had a 97.4 win percentage. That's incredible. He dominated clay surfaces. He's also one of 4 players to win at least 2 titles at the majors. He's also one of 2 players all time to win the career Golden Slam, and the only player to win the career Grand Slam and an Olympic individual gold medal and doubles gold. He was the top 10 of the ATP rankings for 912 weeks. Which is also a record. He also won at least 1 major for 15 consecutive years, which is a record, and he's second all time in career earnings. And in 2002, he was also named to Time's most influential people of 2022. He's 29-30 against Djokovic, and he's 24-16 versus Federer head to head. He's the greatest of all time.
Coach, let me ask you here. Obviously, tell us why he dominates so much on clay, but there's something with Nadal tonight that we don't really have so much in the other players, and he was much more injury prone. How much did that hold him back?
I mean, obviously, he's a much more physical type player too. I mean, remember when Nadal started coming out, and for a period of about 4 or 5 years, wasn't he? He was huge, muscle wise, big. I mean, there was speculation that he was using steroids. There's even been articles and things to say that for sure he used steroids and he would have gotten banned. But the ATP, you can't ban one of the best players, even at that time. One of the best players, right? How do you ban that guy? It would have hurt tennis. So, but he went away for about 8 months. Remember, he had an appendicitis and he had surgery. I mean, there was speculation like that on the tour. I mean, those things are out there, and his body has changed over the years. After that period of about 5-6 years, he was really big and strong and beefy. Or not beefy, but cut up. Didn't look like a tennis player that we've all seen in the past, even ones that are in just great shape. So I don't know. I mean, but I think he's damn good. I mean, whether you're on steroids or not, I don't think steroids, you being big and strong, is going to help you as a tennis player. It might help you last throughout the year, but it's not going to make you hit a ball necessarily much harder. You have to stay loose and relaxed to hit a ball hard. It's like hitting a baseball. The reason why some of the guys are gotten bigger, Jose Canseco was huge and Mark Munguia are huge. They might have been able to hit the ball a little harder velocity-wise, but it doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it. Barry Bonds, I mean, he's probably a better player when he was younger in baseball because he could do more things because he's also skinnier, but he got on steroids and the whole thing. Yeah, he hit the ball far, but he still had to hit the ball. I don't know what made him a better hitter. He didn't make him be able to hit the ball a little longer, but it didn't necessarily make him a better hitter. I've been here seeing the ball and seeing the eyes. So with your eyes. So tennis is the same. I mean, Nadal, maybe if it was the steroids or he's just that big, but he's lost the weight because he started having some knee issues because he was too big and strong, and he's lost the weight, and he's actually probably made him a better tennis player, better mover. One of the things I love about Nadal is he became a better player over time. He was more of an aggressive baseliner, clay court style, but he was still aggressive. He would get forward in the court, but over time he's become gradually more of an all-court player. And he won Wimbledon because he could serve and volley and do some of those things. And I mean, to say he's the greatest of all, for sure he's the greatest clay courter of all time. I mean, I definitely can say that because to win one tournament on the dirt at Roland Garros, it's slow. The conditions, the conditions one day can be really heavy because of the weather. If it's cold and overcast with some rain, the clay is really slow like mud. And then 2 days later, it can be 80 degrees and dry, and the clay can play fast. So Nadal's won in every condition. And with his lefty being a lefty, there's not as many lefties obviously on tour, especially that good. His high heavy lefty into especially somebody like Roger into his one-handed backhand. That's one of the reasons Rafa's stats against Roger are so much greater. I mean, he's got more wins against Roger because he can get into his backhand high heavy up by his shoulders. Does it mean he's a better player? No, I don't think he's a better player. I think Roger's a more all-round, has more shots, better player. But in those circumstances, that's where a leftiness into the one-handed backhand righty, it hurts him.
But yeah, so you mentioned Roger. Let's move on to Federer.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin talked a lot about Roger. He is the first man to win 20 majors. His 20 wins have come from 31 final appearances, second to only Djokovic. Federer also holds the record for most Grand Slam semifinals with 46, quarterfinals with 58, and 81 finals in tournaments. No man has appeared in more majors in the Open era. So there is that. He has won multiple gold medals in doubles. See, and if I'm not mistaken, his favorite surface is grass. Being from Switzerland, he speaks multiple languages. I believe so does, I think, Nadal and Djokovic also do that. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roger retired in 2021. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, he did. Coach, let me ask you something about Roger. He took over the mantle. I guess we could say the torch was passed from Sampras to Roger. How do you think he handled all that with, like, all of a sudden the whole tennis world is on him?
I mean, I think he was it was leading into that. I mean, I was coaching a guy, I've coached a little bit on the guy's side of Vince Spadea. He played Roger in a tournament in Houston, and Vince lost him in 3 sets. But you can tell Roger had an all-court style play. He stayed calm. One of the best things about Roger, he stays calm and composed. I mean, Djokovic is like that, but Roger does it in a way doesn't look like he's using any excess energy. Looks like he's almost just, it's really flowing and really easy. Whereas Rafa was a more physical type of a player. Joker's kind of in between both of those guys in that way. Because Joker can make it look really easy and flowing, but Roger never lost his composure. You never saw him scream and yell that much. You never saw him get mad with his racket or anything like that. He's more composed. He's more like on the Borg side, Iceman type thing. So people really, from Roger's standpoint, people like that. I mean, tennis, when I was a kid, I grew up with a board guy. Well, here McEnroe comes along a few years later, and he's, throwing rackets, yelling and screaming, but that's Matt. It's a personality. It's an individual sport, and you got to be who you are. So you got to really be true to yourself. And I think Roger was really relaxed and it was totally himself, which is really good. I like Roger's game, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. I mean, Roger's game, he's an all-court player. An all-court style player means you have all the shots. It's a little longer. It takes a little longer to get there because you have more shots to practice. Roger gave himself, to me, the best chance to win on every surface. And he finally won, maybe with a little help from Soderling to help him getting through his nemesis, a little bit of Rafa, because the lefty into his one-handed backhand, but it happened, and he won the French. And that really helped Roger, I think, as far as, he won all the slams. And these guys, Rafa's won all the slams, and so is Joker. It's not an easy thing to do. Pete Sampras never did it. And Andre did it, but he hasn't won as many slams. And there's one guy nobody talks about as the greatest of all time. It's kind of interesting to me. And people might say, oh, well, then all the slams are on grass, but he did it 2 different times. And he's the only one on the men's side that ever does it. And do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Was it Rod Laver?
Yeah. He's the only one man in the world that's ever won all 4 in the same year, and he's did it 2 different times. Nobody talks about him, but I find that interesting. Nobody brings him up anymore.
So before we move on to our final 2 players, our honorable mentions tonight, actually Rod Laver is an honorable mention.
Okay.
Connors, Borg, McEnroe, Lendl, and Agassi are our honorable mentions tonight. All great players in their own right.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's move on to Scott. Go ahead, Scott. Who are you bringing us?
Today, I'm going to talk about Djokovic, the Joker, as we've been calling him tonight. Somewhat, he turned pro in 2003. He's 36 years old. He's currently ranked the #1 player in the world. Everyone else in the top 10 is 27 or younger. So he just proves he can play with the young kids, we'll call them.
Absolutely.
He's won awards from Most Improved Player of the Year. He's won the Arthur Ashe Award. He won the Comeback Player of the Year award. Just in the last week or 2, he won the 2023 ITF Men's Championship for the 8th time. So he's an 8-time winner of that. In this year, he won the U.S. Open, the Roland Garros, the Australian Open, the ATP Masters twice. And if you look back at his career, I mean, he's been ranked #1 in the world 8 times since 2011. And since 2007, he's been ranked in the top 5 16 times. So, he's got a long career. He can still play with the kids, we'll call them, in the tennis world as of today. So he's got it going for him still.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even over the years, how I said how Rafa's made himself gradually a little more of an all-court player. Same with Joker. I mean, he's more of an aggressive baseliner coming out on the tour. That's how I kind of saw him. And the one thing all these guys have is they can get forward in the court. They can apply pressure by cutting balls off and getting forward in the court. So, but he's made himself a more all-court player as well. I mean, I go back because my area, I grew up, loving Borg as a kid, but people forget Borg won 5 Wimbledons in a row, 6 finals in a row, and they don't think of him as a serve and volley guy. But if you watch any of the old tapes, he served and volleyed. And so does Joker, and that's why he's able to win on the grass and the faster surfaces and indoors. One of the things Joker does extremely well, and he's a lot like Borg in that way, is he's a great mover. He moves, he's quick, but also he looks slow. He doesn't look like he's working really hard on the court the way he moves, even though obviously he's working hard. He's very efficient. I think that's one of the reasons why he's still one of the best players at his age. He's been very fortunate too. He's taken a great job of carrying him for himself. I think he's had some luck that way because, Roger would probably still be playing because I think he loves to play and compete, but he had a knee injury at the end of his career. Unfortunate because he didn't use a lot of energy to play as well, but he didn't have the luck to be able to keep playing at his age. He was a little older, but Joker, the way he plays, the way he sees the court, he loves to compete, and he's more complete than the guys. Yeah, he's got the most slams. So if we're going to go with that standpoint, yeah, he's the greatest of all time. What are your thoughts?
Well, We got one more player, and then
Right,
we're all
shoot.
gonna give our thoughts. So
Good.
our final player tonight, Pete Sampras. He is the oldest player tonight, currently 52 years old. He if Wimbledon is the Super Bowl, so let's just start right there. He is the best Wimbledon player of all time, especially tonight. 63-7 match record, second all time behind Borg. So he beats everyone here tonight. And he is the best in the U.S. Open, 71-9. His 7 Wimbledon victories is second all time behind Roger Federer, and he's tied with the Joker, of course. But my argument tonight, it can't be stats because his stats, for the most part, are going to be lower than the 3 guys we just talked about. So here is my argument. Competition. Nadal, Federer, the Joker, they all had each other as competition, and that's it. Who else was there? Maybe you throw in Andy Murray, got one here or there, okay? But let me just give you some names. We all know that Pete had the huge rivalry with Agassi. Agassi
there's
is one of the
Courier
all-time
also.
greats. Yeah. And he also had to play against Ivan Lendl, an older McEnroe, but still a good McEnroe, an older Borg, but still good. Connors was older too, but then he's got Boris Becker. So all those guys are top 10 in Grand Slam tournament wins. Then dominating second tier guys like we got Michael Chang and Leighton Hewitt. They're 9th and 10th respectfully in all-time titles. These are guys that he had to go up against every tournament. And then you got your third tier guys, and I don't even consider them third tier. I'd put them on that tier I just mentioned. But we got Courier, Muster, Marcelo Rios. They all reached number 1 during his time period. So, I mean, that's my argument tonight. Why Pete is the GOAT, and he has an incredible serve too. I just want to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
So, your thoughts on Pete?
I mean, when I was a kid, I'd fly down to. Grew up in L.A. and Sacramento. I was born in L.A. Grew up in Sacramento, and I had a buddy of mine, Woody Hunt, and we'd go down and practice with Pete when he was a little kid and stuff. So I mean, I knew Pete a little bit. Knew his coach Paul Annacone for quite a while. And yeah, I mean, yeah, would have to consider him. Obviously, he won 14 slams, correct? Wasn't it 14?
Mm-hmm.
So his serve was probably one of the more dominant, especially of that time period. Absolutely. But again, I mean, technology. I mean, the Wilson Pro Staff, which was the racket that came out in what I think 283, and it was designed for Connors and Chris Evert. But they didn't like it. Actually, Connors went back to T2000, which was kind of interesting. But you know, he had such a good serve. His forehand was good, and his volley was pretty good. I mean, his serve made his volley quite good, but his serve was so dominant. He could kick, he could slide it. He can make it look like he could hit the serve from the same spot, and so but he could do multiple things. So those are all huge things from a game. Some of the things that the guys are doing now and the girls are doing now, even when Pete won his first U.S. or Wimbledon, yeah, it's not the same. That's why it's hard to compare. You start comparing eras. I don't know. I mean, Petey was damn good. I mean, it'd be more my generation, but that whole group, Agassi. I mean, Agassi won all the slams. He had a career Grand Slam.
Played with that Prince Graphite, that helps. So
well, he had the Prince Graphite, then he switched to Don A, but that Don A was basically a Prince Graphite painted that way. You know, that's why it's definitely hard to compare. But yeah, I mean, with having all those guys still playing, but some of them getting a little older, yeah, I mean, absolutely, by far and away, they're some of the best players. And from my generation, you have to say Pete, Andre. You have to say Courier's in that group. He's maybe not had the notoriety as much as Petey or Andre, but he was in there. He had a 2-3 year period where he was winning some slams, and he was pretty dominant. Unfortunately, Thomas Muster, he hurt that knee, but he was one of the best clay courters. He's kind of similar style-wise, lefty to like Rafa. And then there's some other things that you have to take into account as well. There's luck. I mean, Joker's been pretty damn healthy his whole career. He hasn't had too many major injuries. I mean, unfortunately, Petey was like, I mean, Petey, Roger was like that up until the end. I think all these people, Joker, Roger, Rafa, Petey, they all can be, you can sit there and have a couple of drinks and you can sit there and debate why you think this one's the greatest of all time. I think they're all damn good. And it's very hard to sit here and go, oh, we can pull out the stats, but the stats aren't even because they're not always against the same people. So that's the only thing I would say.
Well, can't pick your own guys. Rollo, let's start with you.
Well, Rafa just basically owned Federer, and Djokovic actually had a winning record against Nadal, so gotta go with Djokovic.
Scott.
I gotta go with Federer. He's one of the guys that I just remember more. Not being a huge tennis fan, but I'm a sports fan, and I just remember Federer. Federer is the guy in my end.
Brad.
Well, I hate to do this, but since I'm an American, I'm going to go with Pete Sampras.
For me, I was before this debate started, I was going to take Nadal. I did not know about the steroid thing. That really throws me for a loop there.
Well, I mean, obviously it's not out there, but I have a friend of mine. His name's Kurt Streeter. He's a writer for ESPN, and he's written for the New York Times. And there's he was telling me, I mean, it wasn't written about because Rafa's too good of a guy. I mean, it hasn't come out and say, yep, I did it. And I don't think he ever needs to say anything. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that's what was the speculation on the tour. And he had some of the signs. How can you be that big? I've never seen anybody. I've never seen it. Have you guys seen a tennis player like that ever built like that? And then you've never seen one since, have you?
No.
And then he did lose all that weight, muscle weight, and he's totally different body shape than he was when he was first out there. So it is interesting. That I don't know. I mean, I would say that's probably, yeah. I mean, people need help to get that kind of big and strong and cut up. I think you need help. That doesn't just happen overnight. That takes a little bit of time, and you need help. And he doesn't seem, his body type now, when you look at him, doesn't look like the same. How could be that guy? So I don't know. The speculation was there back then, but he's such a good guy, and he's the way he is as a family and as a person is like, you let that go. And I let that go. That doesn't bother me at all. And to me, if you're using steroids like Barry Bonds, just admit you used it, but you still had to hit the ball. You still had to execute and do it. That didn't make him a better hitter. Made him be able to maybe last longer, so he's not as physically tired towards the end of the season, but he still had to do it. I don't know. I mean, people are able to get by with other things, other ways. I mean, there's been speculation, and Joker's done some stuff. They don't know what it is, but his recoveries and stuff he's done in the past at the Australian Open, pretty amazing, and be as fresh as a daisy coming back after these long 5-set matches, and within 24 hours, he's ready to go again and coming back and winning. People have speculated he's doing from a recovery standpoint from blood and stuff like that, like the bicycle guys doing. There's all that stuff in sport, and I wouldn't be surprised if things are being done, but people are figuring out how to get by the testing. The testing is not fail safe either.
Right. Well, we'll give me Federer, and we'll give a win to Federer tonight because of that. So that'll give him 2 votes there. But let's move into our Q&A here. One question each, guys. So let's see. Who had Federer? That's you, Brad. So you get first question, and then Scott, Rollo, me.
Kevin, quick question. You've been a tennis player all your life. What was better, being as a player or now as a coach?
They're different. I mean, it was fun to be a player, especially when you're playing well and you're in the zone, and you feel like there's nothing, you can do anything you want with the ball, and then being in that kind of control, and that's such a fun feeling. It's not so much because it's fun because you're winning and you're beating somebody, but you're in control and you'll be able to create and do all these different things with the ball and hit the spots in the court that you want to hit. And it feels good, and the ball is shooting off, and you're hitting winners. That's a really fun feeling as a player. And then on top of it, the icing on the cake part of it is the competition and competing, and then you're obviously winning. So that part of it is the icing on the cake part. So a combination of that's really fun. I think as a coach, I have a lot of fun, and that's why I got into coaching. I was going to go to law school. I never thought about coaching. My coach, Steve Stefanski, and his brother, Larry Stefanski, was coaching Marcelo Rios at the time. I was thinking about going to law school, and I had a couple professors I coached when I was finishing my degree, and they said, "Oh, you're a really good coach. You should think about coaching. Really good teacher." Oh, okay, yeah. And so I had a friend who was running a club out in East Hampton, Long Island, New York, and he needed some help. So I decided, yeah, okay, it'd be fun to kind of live in New York. And I'm a California kid, and see what it's like to live in New York on the East Coast a little bit, and I'll coach a little bit and see what it's like. So I liked it. I didn't necessarily like that type of coaching per se, but I really like coaching, helping people. It was fun to help people when they were getting better, and they knew they were getting better. They had this twinkle in their eye, and they were starting to have a lot of fun playing, and that was a lot of fun to be a part of that. So I talked with Steve a little bit about it, and I was able to travel a little bit with Larry Stefanski, and he was coaching Marcelo, and I saw the process and being a chance to travel, and it gives you a chance to kind of compete, and then you get a chance to help somebody improve and get better. That was fun, and I missed the kind of competing part of it. And I always liked to travel. My dad was a pilot with United Airlines, so I got a chance to travel as a kid and kind of see the world and travel a little bit. So I kind of missed being able to do that. And so I saw Larry traveling on the tour, and Steve doing it. And Steve was looking, like I said, he was the Olympic coach in 1984. He's a United States Junior Davis Cup coach. So I grew up watching those guys, and they were going places and doing stuff like that, and it seemed fun. So I kind of decided not going to law school. I'm going to give this coaching thing a try, and I gradually started coaching on the tour, various players from some guys' side to the girls' side. So I like both. It's hard to say one's better than the other. Obviously, a lot of fun playing. I love playing. I love competing, but I also love helping players get better and reach their goals and win tournaments and titles and stuff. And that's fun. And to see people get better and know they're getting better as a player and as a person, that's a lot of fun. So
Obviously, I run the baseball museum up here in Canada, and I'm always interested to see what people collect. Like, baseball, obviously, people get stuff signed and bats
Right.
signed and stuff from their teammates and whatnot. Did you keep any of your stuff when you played, or the guys like Borg or anyone you run into? Do you ask them to sign a tennis ball or take their racket from them?
When I was a little
room,
kid,
or-
I had a racket cover from my tennis club. It was Riodolo Racket Club in Sacramento, California, and they had a racket cover. I mean, we used to have covers for the rackets, and it had the insignia of the club on it. So I got a cover, and I would have these pro players. I used to ball boy. There was a tournament in San Francisco back in the day called the Transamerica Open. I would ball boy for that. I did exhibitions in Sacramento. I ball boyed for Connor. So yeah, I would get their autographs and stuff like that. And I have that laying around my house somewhere. So that was kind of cool. But even now, I mean, I have kids. I mean, I'm a coach. I have kids, and people come up to me and ask for autographs at the bigger tournaments. And I said, no, you want my player? No, I want your autograph. So you end up signing the autograph. But the one I wanted so much was Borg, because he was my guy. I ball boyed for him at the Transamerica Open, but he didn't want to sign autographs. So my big thing was I ball boyed for him. He would have been one I would have obviously kept. But when I was a kid, people collected baseball cards. That was a big deal. The autographs are a big deal, and I think the girls and the guys do a pretty good job of that, and they spend a good job of that. But as you get older, unless you keep it in a certain place, my racket cover, I glanced at it a while back. The signatures are faded and stuff, so I wouldn't even be able to tell who they were. That's the only unfortunate thing. And some of them they sign so quick you couldn't tell who they are. So, but I think it's the fun. It's a thing you do as a kid, especially as a kid, that it's fun. It's the excitement of this is your hero or somebody you really admire. You love the way they played and you want their autograph, and it's kind of the excitement of going through that. Now I did, and I got it. and then you take that back with you, and it makes you excited to go out and play and do that sport. And then with baseball and the whole thing. So I have that racket cover, definitely. I never do the balls, and nobody did balls like that. Maybe because they're kind of hard to sign, but that's a big popular thing. The tennis ball, the big one especially.
Kevin,
Yes.
on the women's side of tennis, since 2017, there have been 27 tournaments played. There have been 18 different winners.
Mhm.
What do you attribute this parity to in women's tennis?
I think there's obviously there's more women playing than there ever have. There's the tour is deeper than it ever has been on the women's side. The girls are more athletic, all those things that we've heard. I mean, technology and whatnot. I think there's not going to be right now like a dominant player. I mean, what's her name? Naomi Osaka's coming back. She would be, because she's won 4 slams. She can be considered somebody that be a little more, possibly could be a dominant one that can maybe win multiple slams and do it maybe a 2 or 3 year period in a row. But we don't have anybody that I see. I think there's more good players. That's number one. I think there's definitely more good players on the women's side, and it's definitely deeper. So that's going to make it harder to win multiple slams and be that dominant player like Serena was. But again, like Serena was telling somebody, I mean, Serena wasn't just a good player. I mean, if you guys remember when Serena first came up, some of her best tennis, I think, is when she was wearing Puma clothes, because she was in unbelievable shape. She was like rock hard, solid. And Celis was still playing. I think Steffi was towards the end of her career, maybe just retired. But there's some of the greats we consider the greats. Sanchez Vicaria, I think, was still playing. There's the top 10 were pretty deep on women's tennis, and she was starting to become pretty dominant. And Venus, her sister, obviously was damn good and winning at that time as well. But Serena was unbelievably rock hard, unbelievable shape. And then when she got bigger and somewhat stronger, I mean, she got the best serve. Serena has the best serve, and backhand was second to none. Very simple, repeatable. She could do anything she wanted with the forehand side, and maybe her little bit dicey side. But again, she could hit winners and she can dominate. So, I think there's just going to be more good players right now. There's not going to be one so much dominant than anybody else. There's nobody like that right now. I mean, I think there's just, it's not so much parity. I just think there's more better athletes now, and they're more comparable than they're on the women's side than they have been in the past. That's what I would say.
Who is the best player that you've trained or coached? Is it McNally or is it somebody else?
Katie, I mean, very, very similar. No, I mean, Katie would be one of the best players by far. She's an all-court player. That's the way I was trained. I love Katie's game. Katie definitely, and Katie's going to get better. I mean, she's young. She's only 21. Her best tennis is still way ahead of her. Katie definitely be one. Guy named Irakli Labatzi. You might have remember he qualified one year at Wimbledon, and he came out of nowhere, and he was kind of big and out of shape, and he's probably one of the best guys I've worked with. I mean, those two from a women's standpoint. I worked with a girl named Arota Chuliaganova that got to about 15, 16 in the world. She was really good. She won junior Wimbledon. And then she, like I said, she got 15, 16, but she had some injuries, to elbow injury and stuff like that. There's quite a few players I've worked with and been around. I did some hitting partner stuff for Venus and Serena when they were in LA and Arizona. So there's various players, and it's hard. I mean, Katie could end up being one of the best players in the world at some point when her game, because she's right. I mean, I've said this in articles and stuff, but Katie, for instance, she's more like Pete Sampras. Coco would be in it because her game's more simpler style than Katie, and she's a little bit bigger and stronger girl. So she has a bigger serve and can win some free points with her serve. And she's got a great backhand, Coco. But Katie's game style is more all-court player, serve and volley, using your slice and things like that, which takes a little longer to learn how to play and trust. And so that's why Katie's game, I mean, she unfortunately got hurt this year. and didn't wasn't able to play after Wimbledon. But she was getting up to 53 in the world right before the French and starting to make some headway. And if she didn't get hurt, I would not be so. It wouldn't be. What is it going to surprise me if she ended up being in the top 30, 20 in the world by the end of this year? But unfortunately, she got hurt, and that's part of pro sports. And you keep moving on, and she's young, and her whole career is still ahead of her. So, but she definitely has a chance to be one of the great ones into the future, I think.
Well, thank you, Coach, for joining us tonight. We appreciate you coming
Anytime,
on.
that was a lot of fun. Anytime you want me have me on to discuss anything tennis wise, feel free. That was fun.
Awesome. A reminder, everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching. Everyone have a great night.